Hi everyone, Jennifer Schaus here, and we're coming to you live today from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us in our complimentary webinar series covering the DFARS, the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement. This is a webinar series that takes place on Wednesdays and Fridays, unless of course there's a holiday. Everything, again, is complimentary and recorded. You can find the recordings over on our YouTube channel. We have a DFARS playlist, as well as a FAR playlist, a GSA Schedule playlist, as well as some tactical and strategic playlists covering sales, marketing, proposal writing, compliance, and more. If you're looking for today's PowerPoints, you can hop over to slideshare.net, log in with your LinkedIn credentials, and it does not cost you anything. And you can get any of our 700 plus PowerPoints that correspond to any of the 700 plus recordings on the YouTube channel. If you're interested in reaching government contractors, we do have sponsorship and advertising opportunities available. Where to go to register on our website under the section called the DFARS, just click on that and you'll see the recordings that we covered back in 2021. Keep in mind that was 4 years ago, so things have changed and they are currently changing. On the right-hand side, you've got the schedule for this year, and then anything that we've already covered, you'll see the link to the recording, which takes you over to the YouTube channel. Pretty simple. A little bit about us before we talk about our sponsors and then dig into the presentation. We do provide services for government contractors with a very heavy focus on GSA schedules, VA schedules, FedLink, and others. And we'll see what kind of happens with GSA schedules based on the latest executive order from March 20th. Some of the other services that we provide are listed here, and you can also hop over to the website to learn more about us. In the event that you're selling to federal contractors, we do offer advertising and sponsor opportunities in the various places that you see listed here on the screen. If you email us and ask us for a media kit, we will send that over to you. It includes pricing and various options to promote events, webinars, your business, or a solution. Okay. And here's just some stats on our current reach and open rate. So the newsletter now reaches over 38,000 subscribers. It's a free newsletter. Most of the subscribers are government contractors, and that's probably how you found out about today's webinar. Okay, we want to thank our in-kind sponsors. This includes GovEvents, Fairfax County, and Set Aside Alert. Set Aside Alert is the go-to publication for finding opportunities for women-owned, veteran-owned, small business, 8A, Hub Zone, and other set-asides. Visit setasidealert.com for more information. You can also find our webinars and events listed in the Set Aside Alert publication. GovEvents is the go-to platform for posting events related to and designated for government and government contractors. You can find all of our webinars and our recordings on govevents.com. And Fairfax County FCEDA has an online calendar that lists and promotes various events and webinars, and you can find all of our events and webinars listed there. We also want to thank our friends over at the Virginia Apex Accelerator. They are a DLA-funded organization. They provide local training, counseling, and mentoring for aspiring government contractors focused on federal, state, local, and other public sector entities. They also provide matchmaking events. Please visit the links on your screen to review the training calendar, locate free resources, and to schedule an appointment with a Virginia Apex Accelerator counselor today. Okay, we want to thank our paid sponsors. The BidSpeed platform allows users to search public sector opportunities at the federal, state, and local level. Users can also find anything from a compliance matrix to teaming partners, incumbent point of contacts, expiring contracts, and proposal templates. Discover, manage, and secure government contracts with BidSpeed. BidSpeed is an official partner of the SBA's ETG Empower to Grow program. Contact BidSpeed today. You've got a phone number and an email at the bottom of your screen. If you're thinking about contracting with the DoD, you need to prepare for CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. C3 suite of CMMC solutions include C3 Command, C3 Catalyst, and C3 Core. These three solutions answer the needs of every defense contractor. Whether your CMMC priority is a fast, defined path to compliance, or you need the flexibility to manage multiple environments, C3 offers these compliance solutions. C3 is your partner with deep expertise in IT, cybersecurity, and compliance. Contact C3 today. WorkPlan. WorkPlan is an online contract management and accounting platform designed for federal contractors and hosted by Amazon Web Services. Get and stay DCAA compliant, manage expenses, timekeeping, and forecasting. Plus, use WorkPlan to manage, capture, and your CRM. Contractors can integrate their HR and payroll into this one easy-to-use solution. Contact WorkPlan today. Ateria specializes in Microsoft Cloud licenses and services for government and contractors. Ateria provides a business advantage for Microsoft Government Cloud licensing, managed IT administration and security, as well as data intelligence services and solutions. They implement secure, compliant, and scalable solutions to enhance operations, reduce risk, and uncover opportunities. Contact Ateria for expert IT assistance. Last but not least, we want to thank our friends over at Gov White Papers. Gov White Papers is the central hub for government and supporting industry to find and post the latest content geared towards solving the challenges facing the public sector. With your free membership, you can add relevant white papers, case studies, data sheets, and more, making them available to a wider government audience. Have the expertise but not the content? Gov White Papers can create materials to meet your specific needs. Join for free today at govwhitepapers.com. Okay, the reason we are here today is to cover the DFARS Part 210. We're lucky to have Amy Fuentes with us, and I'm going to move over to the next slide. She's covering again DFARS Part 210, which is market research. Amy, it's great to have you with us. I took a peek at your slides. They look awesome. I'm going to turn my audio off and wait for you to tell me to advance the slides, but I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer, and thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Amy Fuentes. I'm a partner at Holland & Knight's Government Contracts Group. I sit in Tysons, Virginia, but I have a nationwide practice. And before I was an attorney, I actually worked as a contracts administrator, both for a Fortune 500 company and for a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. So the FAR and the DFARS are near and dear to my heart, and I am excited to be speaking with you all today. Go to the next slide, Jennifer. So we're here today to talk about the DFARS 210, and that is on market research. And so I've kind of put together a few quick bullet points. I'm not going to read out loud to you. You guys are more than capable of kind of reading those. But I'm going to kind of just talk a little bit about the, an introduction, if you will, to like what the DFARS 210 is. And so DFARS 210 plays a really crucial role because it helps guide the market research activities for government contractors. And so it's a key component of the acquisition process and outlines the policies and procedures that DoD contracting officers have to follow to ensure that market research is conducted effectively and efficiently. And this part of the DFARS is designed to enhance the acquisition process by giving contracting officers a structured approach to gathering and analyzing market data, which is essential for them to make informed procurement decisions. And the DFARS 210 is supported by a robust legal and regulatory framework, and that overall within the acquisition process emphasizes the importance of market research for agencies, and it aligns to the FAR, and that's really important. And if you've ever opened up DFARS 210, there's a section that references a specific part of the FAR that we'll talk about briefly. But this presentation today is kind of to help set the stage for a deeper exploration of some of the specific procedures and best practices that DFARS 10 outlines. And so we can just go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so I talked a little bit about why market research is important, but I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. And so if you're a contracting officer and you're trying to put together an acquisition plan or you're doing procurement planning, market research is going to enable the contracting officer to gain an understanding of what that market landscape is. And that includes identification of the capabilities and offerings of potential suppliers. And so that's really crucial for the government to understand who are the most suitable contractors, what kind of services and products are out there, and then just making sure that the government is receiving that best value supports procurements. And so conducting the market research helps promote competition as well, which is really important for contractors because it encourages and requires the agencies to identify a diverse pool of potential offers. And so that's going to ensure competitive pricing. It's also going to encourage innovation and cost savings. And so all of that benefits both industry and government. And so there's kind of this overall tenet of procurement law and procurement regulations that by fostering a competitive environment that contributes to transparency and fairness. And so that this is kind of fits in within that overall framework, if you will, for procurement policies. And so another thing that market research does is it plays a really vital role in risk mitigation because it allows contracting officers to, and requires contracting officers, importantly, to analyze market trends and supplier capabilities. And so that in turn allows contracting officers to anticipate potential challenges, develop strategies to address them. And so that type of proactive approach will reduce the likelihood of procurement delays, cost overruns. And the thought is that by requiring this market research and doing their homework, if you will, that will ultimately support the successful execution of government contracts. Go to the next slide. Okay, so I don't have a slide on actually just copying and pasting what DFARS 210 is, but you all can kind of pull it up and kind of walk through it. And this kind of summarizes it, if you will. But I did just kind of want to spend some time walking through it. And so if you look at the DFARS 210, it's kind of short, and I think it's purposely short because it refers to the requirements of FAR 10.001A. And so importantly, when you're working within the framework of DFARS 210, the policy of DoD is it says, in addition to the requirements of FAR 10.001A, and then it goes into some other requirements. But first, I want to talk just really quickly and go through what those FAR 10.001A requirements are so that we're all kind of on a level playing field. And so if you pull up FAR 10.001, it says agencies are required to ensure that when they're doing a procurement, that the needs are legitimate, that they've identified that the needs are legitimate, that they have evaluated trade-offs to acquire the items that meet those legitimate needs. And then it says to conduct market research appropriate to the circumstances. So appropriate to the circumstances mean that it's a flexible standard, and so it's going to be really tailored to specific procurement. And so that's important to know. But the FAR specifically lays out that market research is required for a few different things. And so it says that contracting officers / agencies have to conduct marketing research before developing new requirement documents for an acquisition by that agency, before soliciting offers for acquisitions with an estimated value in excess of the simplified acquisition threshold, before soliciting offers for acquisitions with an estimated value less than the simplified acquisition threshold when adequate information is not available and the circumstances justify its cost, before soliciting offers for acquisitions that could lead to consolidation or bundling, before awarding a task or delivery order under an IDIQ contract, that includes GWAC and multiple award contract, for other than commercial product or commercial service in excess of that simplified acquisition threshold, on an ongoing basis to take advantage of commercially available market research methods in order to effectively identify the capabilities of small businesses and new entrants into federal contracting that are available in the marketplace for meeting the requirements of the agency. It also requires that the agency use the results of this market research to determine if sources are capable of actually satisfying the agency's requirement, determining if commercial products or commercial services are available, determining the extent to which commercial products could be incorporated at the component level, if that's applicable to that procurement, determining the practices of firms engaging in producing, distributing, and supporting commercial products. If you're sensing a theme here, there's a lot of emphasis, is there a commercial product or service that exists? Ensuring that the maximum practical use of sustainable products and services are being sought, determining whether consolidation or bundling is necessary and justified, and determining whether the acquisition should utilize any of the small business programs in accordance with FAR Part 19. And finally, the agency is required to use the results of market research to assess the availability of the supplies and services that meet all or part of the applicable information and communication technology accessible standards. And so what's really fun about the FAR and DFARS is that there's all these like sub citations and things to go, but really what it boils down to is what I have here. And so when the CEO is conducting market research, it needs to define the scope and objectives of the acquisition. It needs to employ a variety of data collection methods to gather that market information. It needs to then analyze that data to assess the capabilities and suitabilities of potential suppliers, and it needs to document that market research process. And the documentation is super important. We're going to flip back now to DFARS Part 210. So again, the policy says, in addition to the requirements that we just walked through for that part of the FAR, agencies shall conduct market research appropriate to the circumstances before issuing a solicitation with tiered evaluation of offers. And it references Section 816 of Public Law 109-163. And so if you pull that up, what it talks about is a tiered evaluation of an offer for a contract or a task or delivery order under the contract should be made, and it requires that the agency has conducted the market research in accordance with Part 10, and it has to determine whether or not there's a sufficient number of qualified small businesses that are available to justify the limitation of competition for the award of such contract or task order or delivery order under the applicable law regulations. So there is kind of this emphasis on should it be set aside for small businesses. And subpart A1B talks about that again, it's a little duplicative. It says use the results of market research to determine whether their criteria in FAR Part 18 are met for setting aside the acquisition for small businesses or for a task or delivery order, whether or not there is a sufficient number of qualified small business concerns available to justify limiting competition under the terms of the contract. So basically follow FAR 10.001. Agencies have to use that market research before issuing a solicitation with tiered evaluation of offers. Contracting officers are required to use market research to inform price reasonableness determination. So if any of you have gone through the proposal process, you know that most solicitations have a price reasonableness determination that the contracting officer makes during the evaluation of offers. So that's where this comes into. And then there is a requirement of notification referencing back to the FAR subsection 10.001B2 for if you're going to bundle a requirement. And so that is always interesting because when you're bundling a requirement, you have at least in the DoD, and then if you look a little further down, actually, you will see a reference to DFARS 205.205-70. And so when an acquisition is going to be funded entirely with DoD funds and it potentially involves bundling, the CEO has to, within 30 days prior to the release of a solicitation or 30 days prior to placing an order without a solicitation, publish in the government point of entry, which is sam.gov, a notification of the intent to bundle the requirement. And so sometimes if you're a small business or if you're another company and you had a prior requirement and the government is going to now bundle your requirement with something else, that could give rise to something like a award protest or something like that if you think that they should not be doing that. So that's kind of where all of that comes in. The other thing that I want to flag that comes up within DFARS 210 is that the contracting officer, once they make all the market research in accordance with, FAR Part 10 and all of this other guidance, is that they are required to put in the contract file a written explanation of the marketing efforts that they made. And the other thing I want to refer you all to, and I'm trying to keep this going and keep this as streamlined as possible, is that there is reference to DoD PGI 210.070. And so if you click on that and you go through it to that, there's actually a really great acquisition market research guide that is from DoD and is a PDF, and that walks through in a lot of detail what DoD is doing in the background and what type of information you would expect to see in a procurement file. And I think that that's really important for contractors to understand where the market research is coming from, where COs are pulling that information from. For example, it talks about that it instructs agencies and COs to read trade journals, engage in knowledgeable people in specific markets, so going to those industry days, that type of thing. Identifying and engaging in known sources of services. I've had clients that submit white papers about their capabilities to contracting officers to let them know about what type of things they have. It even says attend trade shows, attend conferences, talk to other agencies, look in the government databases, do web searches. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get your capabilities in front of DoD, and this guidance document that's linked to within the DFARS is something that you all should check out to kind of figure out how to do that. You can go to the next slide.
Sure, and Amy, this is Jennifer jumping in. If anyone's listening, Amy referenced PGI, procedures, guidelines, and information. Hopefully I'm getting that correct. I believe that we covered that in the DFARS overview. So if you just go over to our website or to the YouTube channel and look at the DFARS playlist, you can get more information on that. And feel free to elaborate on PGI if you want, Amy.
Yeah, so again, that PGI is super helpful, and it basically comes out of a joint working group from the military departments, and they put together best practices for these different subsections. And so again, just to kind of get more of that information, it is linked to, if you pull up the DFARS, you can find it as well, but definitely check out what Jennifer mentioned as well. Oh, did we go to the next slide? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the other thing I just wanted to flag is that there is within the PGI guidance and marketing research, it talks about COs utilizing feedback from previous acquisitions to improve future market research efforts, and that contracting officers are also encouraged to seek feedback from potential offers and use that information, especially if they think that there are barriers to competition, to enhance the effectiveness of future research and that type of thing. So again, I think that a lot of times my impression has been that people kind of see these procurements come out, and they don't realize that there's all this market research that goes into the solicitation before it comes live. And there's such a great opportunity for industry to get their capabilities and information known for the agency stakeholders. And so I did just kind of want to flag that for you all. Go to the next slide. And so last thing I want to do is kind of just talk through some best practices for government contractors. I have 6. I'm going to talk about each one of them in a little bit more detail. But the best way to, in my opinion, to kind of effectively engage in market research under the DFARS 210 is to kind of adopt several best practices that will enhance your ability to compete and succeed in the marketplace. And so the first thing is understand the requirements. So it sounds so simple, but you know, so many times, so I do a lot of litigation, I do a lot of bid protests, and a lot of times I'm defending proposals that don't necessarily, or I'm attacking proposals if I'm the protester that may not understand the specific requirements and objectives of the government acquisition. So you need to be doing your own market research and your own research on this procurement. So understand the specific requirements and objectives of the government acquisition, but also the key agency stakeholder. And so that's going to involve everything from really getting into the nitty-gritty of the solicitation documents, the technical specifications, the evaluation criteria, because you're really trying to align your capabilities with the specific needs of the contracting agency. And I think that in today's market in particular, we're seeing a lot of shifts within the procurement landscape. There's a lot of shakeup with the Trump administration. And I think that it's going to become even more important to figure out ways to pivot and align your capabilities with the needs of that agency, and to really do a deep dive and be very thoughtful in your proposal responses. Look at, you know, what RFIs are out there. What is the agency looking for? Who are your competitors? Who would, you know, going into teaming, and who's the incumbent? You know, it's all these fundamental things. But I think going back to the fundamentals is going to be so important moving forward in this landscape in particular. The next thing is you want to leverage technology. And so, you know, we live in a day where AI There's AI tools. Jennifer talked about some of the sponsors of today's program that have great capabilities to help you and using advanced technology and data analytical tools to enhance your own market research. And so contractors really should be employing software solutions to gather and analyze the market data so that you're understanding how you compare, what are the industry trends, what are the potential opportunities that are out there, who are your potential competitors. And so that technological edge is really going to provide you valuable insights into competitive landscape and inform your internal strategic decision making. And it's really worth the investment. So I did just want to flag leveraging technology is pretty important. The next thing is that you really want to maintain compliance. So that sounds kind of like a weird thing to bring up in the context of DFARS 210, but again, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit of a tighter market perhaps moving forward. And so just regularly reviewing regulatory updates, making sure that your market research practices and your internal compliance practices adhere to federal procurement policies, document your research activities, maintain transparency in your interactions with agencies. Just keeping your head above board, I think, is a really good thing that you should always be doing for corporate hygiene, but I think it's just a really important thing to be keeping in mind moving forward. The next is fostering relationships with contracting officers. So, you know, I have some clients that are, I would call them non-traditional government contractors. So folks that do a lot of commercial work and are kind of dipping their toes into the government space. And sometimes there's this perception of being afraid of reaching out to contracting officers, but building strong relationships with your contracting officers can give you really valuable insights into the acquisition process and upcoming opportunities. And having an open line of communication or identifying key stakeholders, getting white papers in front of COs, helping them with their market research efforts, attending industry days, having your face be known, networking with peers and industry experts, like all of those things can offer new perspectives and not only enhance your own market knowledge, but the market's knowledge of you. And so the other thing that I think is really important is seeking feedback from contracting officers. So, and just, you know, if you don't win a proposal, always, you know, ask for a debriefing and ask thoughtful questions and try to better understand the government's needs so that for your next effort, you can tailor offerings accordingly. During the question and answer process of solicitations, asking questions and getting into those nitty-gritty questions to figure out if you're really tailoring your proposal to your perception of the market needs and the acquisition needs. The next thing is staying informed and engaged. So again, I talked about going to industry events, workshops, seminars, that type of thing. I think it's important too to subscribe to publications and online resources. I mentioned that there's a lot of change in industry right now. I think there's going to be shifts in market research and what type of procurements are coming out. So just being aware of the trends and priorities perhaps of the current administration and regulatory changes, I think is really important. And then the last thing I want to kind of end out with today is just collaboration and seeking feedback. And by that, I mean, develop strong relationships with your peers within industry, collaborate with other contractors, seek feedback from past acquisitions. Maybe they know something you don't know. Contractors should be open to learning from experiences and being adaptable, right? Like I think that in today's market, being adaptable, refining strategies to overcome barriers to competition and enhancing your competitive edge is going to be so important. And so my hope is that today I've given you an overview of what the government is doing on their end at DoD in terms of DFARS 210, but I hope I've given you some things to think about in ways that you can leverage their requirement to do that market research and that you can use those requirements to better support your own strategic objectives and position yourself for success within the federal marketplace. And that is my webinar. So awesome. If you have questions about what I've talked about today, if you have questions about what is going on in the new administration on executive orders, if you have questions about anything, my practice kind of goes through the whole cradle to grave of contract administration. I do a lot of drafting agreements, I help negotiate, I do litigation, bid protest claims, all the above. But I really appreciate everyone's time today. And Jennifer, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Amy, that was an awesome presentation. Great job as usual. We loved having you. And again, as Amy said, if you guys have questions about the DFARS, this particular part, or anything that's happening currently, feel free to reach out to her. Her email is listed there, and she's easy to work with and a great person. So thanks again for presenting in our series. Again, you can find all of our webinars, 700 plus, over on the YouTube channel. They're all complimentary. If you are watching the YouTube recording, give us a like or leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. And that wraps it up. So we will jump back on Friday at noon Eastern to cover DFARS Part 211, and we'll go down the list. So thanks again, everybody, and thanks again, Amy.